The opinions expressed in the following sermon are the preacher's personal views and do not always reflect those of the North Platte Baptist Church. We only ask that you take Acts 17:11 to heart and search the Scriptures daily to see whether these things are so.
It's wonderful to see. America's always celebrated Easter, but it seems like in the last 10 or 15 years it's become it's the biggest non-promotion Sunday of the year in the state of California. The biggest Sunday of the year is Easter, followed by the second biggest Sunday, which is Mother's Day, coming up next month, followed by Christmas, followed by my birthday. And if you want to mark my birthday down, it's August 28th. I saw a lady in our church. She was getting ready to give birth last week and to a baby. And I said, I was just hoping you'd hold off for my birthday. She didn't know when my birthday was. And I said, I hope you hold off. She said, well, Pastor, when's your birthday? I said, it's August 28th. And she said, I don't think I'll hold off. I was preaching at one church recently, and I was talking about a lady giving birth because someone on the staff had just given. Really, ladies, it's not that big a thing to have a baby. I mean, to us men, it doesn't seem like it would be that big a thing. When you stop and think of it, the pressure is more on the man than it is on the lady. A lady's just laying in bed. And if she wants something, she just rings the bell and the nurses come. She wants ice chips, you'll get the ice chips. Want more blankets, less blankets. I mean, the poor husband, he's running around. She's laying in bed. And then they expect to lay in bed for another 2 days. I don't know what's wrong with ladies nowadays. But thank God for all those babies that you give us. It's wonderful. What a great crowd tonight. And the music has been heavenly. Tremendous to see those children sing. And all those old people that just sang. I enjoyed watching that elder. Was that the Senior Saints ministry there? Was that what that was? I saw many of those at the rest home we were visiting today. And I was walking out of the hotel tonight, and a fellow much older than he looked at me and says, wow, you look kind of spiffy tonight. I said, I don't look bad for 105, do I? And that's what I was doing. I was laughing. And he said, wow. Good night. I couldn't believe he thought I was 105. People are slow up here. I guess he had it said Oregon on top, so it must have been from Oregon, I guess. I don't know. My grandson's an Oregon fan. Ducks. He likes the Ducks. Look, there'll be no outbursts like that in church. That's going to cost you 10 more minutes on this message. And you'll be saying amen. I've got a 4-hour message tonight. I've pared it down to 2 hours. And my dad said all the time, son, if you don't strike oil in 20 minutes, quit boring. So we don't know what boring is because we don't drill for oil anymore in this country. This is the state of the tree huggers, is that right? You have rubbed off on us. Boy, we have people. Good. Well, let's not go there. It's an amazing thing, isn't it? But I know you pastors are so busy, and if you're running out, I understand that. But I'd like to hear what Easter was yesterday. I don't need to tell you about our day, but I would love to hear about your day. And I've had so many reports. I was at the airport, and different graduates called me and said, here's what happened. Here's how many people were saved. Here many people baptized. And it's been a really encouraging day to hear that. And folks have emailed in. And we're excited about what God's doing. I rejoice over 200 saved here. And Pastor Brother Carlos and Kathy and I were talking. They're thinking about coming to join our Spanish ministry. And no pastor in America has to worry about me going after a staff. What would I recommend? Okay, we can give you an apartment for $3,000 a month, Yeah, like I'm going to lure them to our area. But we do have sunshine there, I'll tell you that, all the time. And I appreciate what God's doing here. I really don't mention these things. I'll say all the CDs are $10. All the books tonight will have $10. It'd be great. I want to talk to you about this book here. God Makes No Mistakes. If you don't have this, you need to get it, whether a mate walks out or you lose your job, or health, or like the 62 people now on our prayer page with cancer, you'll need a book like this. This was written by 10 adults. My wife was the one that organized this and edited it. She asked 5 preacher friends and their wives, would you write about the experience when your son went home to be with the Lord, when your son or daughter passed away? And it's 5 pastors and all of their children that died in car accidents or cancer. The one right here, I'm thinking about today especially, because it's Pastor Mrs. Brent Strofe. Mrs. Strofe, the day she was born, I held her in my arms. They pastored for 10 years. They're on our staff now as one of our assistant pastors. But it was 4 years ago right now, tonight, that I was at their house. And at about 12:30 on April 2nd, their 4-year-old boy died of cancer, Jeremiah. And they write their experiences in this book. Some, though they're pastors and pastors' wives, say, I became very disillusioned for a while. Some write here, people don't know what to say, but they generally say, well, you know, and it brings no comfort. Romans 8:28. And they'll say you feel like slapping them when you lose a child. And we know I had a pastor tell me his 24-year-old son just dropped dead of a heart attack. Very healthy. He's not in this book. But he said, Brother Trieber, it took me a year before I could even claim Romans 8:28. Don't fault somebody. I don't know what it must feel like to lose a child. And Brother and Mrs. Wilkerson, now pastor at First Baptist of Hammond, writes the day their son, just real close to our church, was killed in a car accident. I think you'll enjoy that book. Pastors, I don't see it here, so maybe it's not there, but my wife has a book out, and if you'll leave me out there a tract or a business card, if you're a full-time pastor, I'll send it to your wife, to you to give to your wife for free. And it's the book With All My Heart. And Miss Trieber writes it. It's a tremendous book about being a pastor's wife. We're told that 80% of pastors' wives do not want to be pastors' wives. That breaks my heart. My wife grew up in a pastor's home. Her dad pastored the same church 57 years. Her brother's the pastor of that church now. Her brothers are all pastors. I'm a pastor. She married a pastor. But she talks about the home. We have a great church, but I tell you, the blessing of my life is I have a great marriage and a great family. 3 kids, all married, all in the ministry, and 9 grandkids. And I want to get that book to you. This is one. I'll just talk about one more. The Adversary book. I think there's 20 chapters on the devil. And there is 20. And how he's going to fight you all the way, every step of the way. The devil's real. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and spiritual wickedness in high places. It's a wrestling match. Everything in the Bible, boxing, when he talks about we fight, box, our race, our running, and our wrestling, those are all individual sports. It's not a team sport. Your battle with the devil, my battle with the devil is for a lifetime, and it's individual. And I must fight Satan. And it's such an amazing truth as we read about the armor of God and how he'll seek to deceive us. You know, when you put on the whole armor of God, the very first piece is the girdle or the girt of truth. That belt, everything in the armament below and above attaches to truth. When my wife and I were raising our children, we tried to labor obedience and truth. When a child cannot tell the truth, you loosen your armament, and all the armament becomes of no avail. David believed he could loosen the armament of truth. And when he loosened that armament, he began to fail in many areas. And I hope that you'll understand that the devil's out to destroy you. I go through my file about every 2 years. I have a file on every preacher. If a pastor's ever written me a letter, I have a file. All my members that have written me notes, all the children that have written me notes. When a child gets married, I just pull their file out. When we have a funeral, I just pull the file out. I normally preach from their file. But I, about every other year, clear out those files because so many have gone by the wayside. And it's a grief to me to see those names when they go by the wayside, preachers that used to preach. And I hope that you'll get that book. There's others there. You can see it. Take your Bibles, please, and we're turning to the book of Genesis tonight. Pastor, thank you so much for letting me come, and what a great crowd. It's 7:50, and I'm going to try to move real quickly. I'll speak quickly if you listen quickly. And normally I'm not a long-winded preacher, but where I do preach longer when I enjoy the crowd. I really enjoy this crowd. I don't plan to be long. But I plan to speak on something that I hope will help us tonight. Thank you, staff, and the staff that are here. Parents, for those kids in the Christian school, keep them there. Keep them there. Sometimes when things don't go well, keep them right there and keep them in church. And grandparents, stay in church. We have this phenomenon in America, that we raise our kids and then we have our grandkids and we feel like we can cut out of church. Stay in church a lifetime. My dad and mother are going to be 90. And I pastored them for 33 years. Brother Bud Silva in Santa Maria is their pastor now. Brother Bud Silva turned 60 yesterday. Was his birthday. And Brother Bud Silva is their pastor. And my mom and dad go to Sunday school, attend Sunday school, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, special prayer, revival. Recently been married. They've been married 65 years. Recently on a Saturday, I said, "What are you doing today?" He said, "We're going to the marriage seminar." I said, "You got to be kidding me. What do you need to know?" "Well, we don't know if we need to know anything, but we like to go and we'll be there. We'll hopefully learn something, and that'll be great." I'm writing a book right now on marriage, about women, quite frankly. Everything I know about women, I'm up to 592 pages. They're all blank. Women, you are the hardest ones to understand. Whether it starts while you just lay in that bed in the hospital, I won't go back there. But God bless women. I'm so thankful. My mother was and is a woman. My wife was and is a woman also. Our girls are women. I kind of like women. Just don't understand them, but I like them. It's amazing, women. You young girls have no idea, but you'll learn. You'll get married, and you're going to love Ralph with all your heart, and 3 days later you're going to hate him with the same passion you love him with. But it sort of works that way. And the truth is, I want to clarify. I've been married 40. I love marriage. I love my wife. And I've talked to her already since I've been here. I'll talk to her tonight. And marriage is a wonderful thing. And some of you say, I'm not married yet. I'm worried I'm not going to get married. Look, you're only 14. You're okay. But you'll find the right one. You'll find the right person. And I know people, they're not been married, and they're 30, 31, 32, 33, and they're just getting married. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You want to find the right person. And I'm certain you will. Genesis 3, I've been trying to give the staff some time to find Genesis. Genesis 3, verse 1. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And it said to the woman, Yea, if God said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden. It's amazing. The first attack that came in world history came against the home. The very first attack. And the devil's out to attack your home, your marriage, your children. He's a roaring lion. He's seeking whom he may devour. And he says, can't you eat every tree? Well, no, we cannot. And the Bible says, the woman said unto the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall you touch it. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die. That is a lie. They're going to die. Not physically, as a result, right here immediately, but they'll die spiritually to be separated from God. For God doth know that in the days that ye eat thereof, your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, the tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave it also to her husband, and with her, and he did eat. The eyes of them both were open, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together, and made themselves aprons. Instead of a long introduction, let me suggest this. Let me tell you what I'm speaking on tonight. I'm speaking to myself, and normally a pastor's message is more to himself than to the people. I feel in my life it works better when I preach to myself. And normally it's in my study where God is speaking to me. And then I try to transfer to my people what God has given me while alone with Him. I'm speaking tonight on the subject, inviting sin and destruction into our lives. Inviting sin and destruction into our lives. It's not unheard of in my mail to receive mail from preachers that are sitting in jail and will sit there for years. That is a regular occurrence. It's not uncommon to receive mail from behind prison walls from all over the country on a regular basis. I think of many that I correspond with, some I've never met. Somehow they begin to correspond. I think of a man that I've been corresponding with years, and I never felt like I should ask him, why are you there? I didn't think he needed me to ask him that. I felt like he wanted a pastor, and I write him and I send him materials to read. The man said to me a few years ago, he said, Brother Trieber, you've never asked, but I want to tell you why I'm here. I'm a murderer. And I murdered a man. I correspond with murders. I correspond with many people that are in prison for years. No one ever thought they would be a murderer. No one ever thought I was witnessing to a man who got out of prison. And he came and he saw me, and I was talking to him years ago. And he said, I cannot get saved. And I said, why do you think you cannot get saved? He said, you're looking at a man that murdered his dad when I was a boy. At 18 years of age, I killed my own father. You tell me that I can get saved. I'll tell you I cannot get saved. No one went out in life planning to wind up in prison. No one started off at their marriage thinking, how can I leave this one and defile my marriage vows? But no one grew up in elementary school thinking, how can I have a baby out of wedlock? My son preaches to our bus teenagers at the other property, and yesterday, like usual, the place was packed. But like usual, he had teenagers bringing their babies to Sunday school. And taking their babies, teenage girls taking their babies, not married, teenage girls taking their babies to the nursery. Not one of those girls thought at age number 15 and 16, I'm going to be a mother. No one thinks that we're going to go do something foolish. And no one in this room thinking tonight, I'm going to get drunk. I've been going to church for decades. I'm going to tell you, I've been pastoring and preaching for 40 years. I'm going to tell you something, friend, tonight. My wife said it this way to me one time. When someone called and said, I need help, she said, I'm afraid I'm not getting callous, but nothing surprises me. I'd have to agree with her. You and I are capable of inviting sin into our life. And when lust hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin. And sin, when it is finished, bringeth forth death. If we don't put precautions up, we will lose our marriage. If we don't put precautions up, we will lose our purity. There must be precautions put up. No one sets out in life with the purpose, how can I destroy? How can I make my wife cry? How can I make my husband fall on his knees, brokenhearted, where he has no strength to stand up? How can I hurt my children? What can I do? Man and a woman, I remember them getting saved in our church, and they both started to grow. And after a short time, he just kept going on and on and on. And she said, I miss the old life. I miss getting drunk together. I miss watching you get in fist fights. They had 4 children, the youngest 6 months. They invited me to the home. She said, I'm leaving. He's a good man. He's done nothing wrong. He's not hurt me. As becoming a Christian, he became a Christian. I don't want it. I'll never forget the Sunday morning it took place. He brought the 4 kids to Sunday school. While he was at Sunday school and church, he knew, I knew, she knew, the kids did not know because she said, I don't want to tell them. That she packed up and left out. That man's still now, 6, 7 years later, not in our church. He's moved away to a good independent fundamental Baptist church that we started. Going to Sunday school. Sunday morning. Sunday night. Wednesday night. Alone. Raising 4 children. Those little kids were in our Christian school for the next 2 years. And at elementary chapel, I'd watch them. It was just like being run over by a Mack truck. My heart ached so much for them. How in the world can we go so wrong? How does that happen? How does it happen that my first pastor, actually my second pastor, how does it happen that he walked out of the church with another woman and quit the ministry and left his wife in that auditorium? How does that happen? Dr. Mike Johnson, you know so very well, in Redding, California. How does it happen that his father preached a message? When he was done preaching, he walked to the back door and picked up the woman in the church and left his wife there. And then he went through and walked out, and Brother Johnson went through 8 different sets of parents and step-parents and drunkards, and his mother, the preacher's wife, turned to drink. And the one stepdad was so abusive, he'd come and beat him all the time. How does that happen? How does it happen that this young man begins a church and begins to grow and it goes forward, and it's just amazing. He builds an auditorium like this in just a few short years. How does it happen that his last message he stood and preached it drunk? I want to suggest to you, this couple gives us a good illustration of how it happens. This couple, first of all, did not practice prohibition. Prohibition means to say no. You can't do that. We don't live in that day to day. We want to live, no one's telling me no. The pigs, when they're not pigs, they're policemen. The police are not going to tell me no. Authority is not going to tell me no. My school teacher is not going to tell me no. My mother, my dad, my wife, my husband, a preacher, no one's going to tell me no. Judges 17:6, Every man did that which was right in his own eyes. I'll tell you where safety is, where you find out what the rules are and the regulations and the prohibitions and what you can do and what you cannot do, and then obey the rules, the regulations, and the prohibitions. Obey it. The Bible makes it clear. Go back to chapter 2:17. Chapter 2 and verse 17. God said, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, thou shalt not eat of it. That's as clear as the nose on my face. You don't need to have the Hebrew language to try to figure out, I wonder what God's saying there. God says don't eat it. Chapter number 3, verse number 3. But of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. We live in an era that we want life to be governed by privileges. Privileges and liberty. And please, I know many great Liberty Baptist churches. Many of them. But many churches, when someone leaves a church and a pastor says, I am going to go start another church without the rules and without the regulations and without the standards and without the this and that, they call it Liberty Baptist or Freedom Baptist. And I know some great, I'm preaching in a few months in North Carolina in a Freedom Baptist. That's a good church. The big names are Liberty Baptist, Grace Baptist, and Freedom Baptist. And it's all result that it's all under grace. Many times in the last 15 years, 20 years, men that commit adultery as preachers of the gospel, then they hang around for another year or two and then open up Grace Baptist. All over this country. I know many great Grace Baptist church. I'm not indicting the whole crowd. It's amazing. We don't want any rules. We don't want any regulations. Many of God's people are missing the blessing of God because they want to do their own thing. They want to do what is right in my own eyes. We want a pastor to marry us, to bury us, to provide buildings, to have good music, to have schools, and have a good feeling when I go to church, but stay out of my personal life. There's danger. The pastor's a shepherd. The shepherd needs to lead the flock. And the shepherd, as he leads the flock, he's leading you into a tableland. Thou preparest a table before me. The word table is the word mesa. It's the same word in Espanol and in Hebrew and in any language. A tableland is a mesa land. It's a flat place. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. The little shepherd is the pastor. The great shepherd is God Almighty. I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. You don't choose the pastures. The pastor is the one that provides the green pastures. Listen, friend, that's why on our 24-hour radio, I tell people all the time, I'm not your pastor. Some of you be good to get one pastor. But what we do, we find this pastor on the internet says this, and we like what he says, and we like what this one says, and we like what this one says, and we don't like so much what this one says. Once in a while we'll use them if we need it. And then we get a hodgepodge of what we want. That's what they did in the Old Testament. As a wife should not have multiple husbands, and a husband should not have multiple wives. God's people ought to find one shepherd. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He restoreth my soul. By the way, your soul can't get restored if you're not in Sunday school, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. The Bible says, thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemy. What would the shepherd do? The shepherd would go up the side of the mountain. He'd find a table place. He'd clear out the sharp rocks, the stones. He made sure that those predators were not in that area. He would fence it in, and then he'd become the door, and he'd lead the sheep into a table place, a safe place, and he became the door for the sheep. Because the sheep are protected in the sheepfold. Thou anointest my head with oil. Why is that so important? Sheep have moisture in the corners of their eyes. With the moisture, with the runniness of it, that's where insects love to hatch their eggs. They nest in the corner of that moist eyes of a sheep. And they hatch their eggs. And then it begins to itch. And so what those sheep do, they stand face to face and they rub faces together. But what the one is doing, he's infecting the other. And a shepherd anoints the head to keep the moisture and keep the insects out of the eyes so that you don't pollute the entire flock. Be careful, ladies and gentlemen. We're bringing up every wind of doctrine, every type of music, every philosophy. Says, here's something I found. And instead of the shepherd leading us, we're leading the sheep. And what happens to churches like that? You begin to infect it. And all of a sudden, the sheep are all diseased. This couple chose to totally disobey God. No prohibition. Well, they tried to stand up to Satan. She did. And I'd like to insert this. I wonder where Adam was. Adam was there to protect his wife. But Satan went and he went to Eve. Where was Adam? He failed Eve. She failed God. He fell into the sin with her because he partook also. And guess what? They plunged the entire race into sin. Oh, you precious mothers and dads. I tell you, it has to be much harder on you raising kids in this era than when my wife and I raised children. But it was difficult then too. I want to say as mothers and dads, oh, how we have to be on the same page. And there has to be rules. Our family, my wife and I sat down, we figured out what kind of rules we had. God had 10 rules to lead a nation, 10 commandments. We didn't have a lot of rules, but the rules we had, we enforced. We believed in obedience. We believed in truth. We believed in kindness. We believed in having an evening meal together as a family. I feel like, and my wife felt like, the best place to raise a family, and we have 2 gymnasiums. I thank God for it in our ministry. But we don't believe the best place is to raise the kids in a gymnasium. And we have little 5-year-old through 12-year-old, 12 years of age. We have, I think, 17, 18 baseball teams this year. And we love the baseball games and all that's going on. They're playing some right now. But we don't believe that's the best place to raise kids. We think the table is the best place. My wife and I sat down. We said at our dinner, let's not talk about anything negative. Let's not talk about any problems in school. Let's have some quiet Christian music, instrumental music playing. If you listen to our radio station, that's why from the hours about 6 to 7, 5:30 to 7, we play quiet instrumental hymns and songs. And my wife always did and still does, lights a candle. And nobody just got up and ate. You know, it's almost a lost art knowing how to cook. Monday night's Burger King. Tuesday night's Chick-fil-A. Wednesday night's pizza. Thursday night we're all on our own to do whatever. Friday night we're going out. Saturday it's just open a refrigerator. What about a meal? The best place to raise kids in the house was the house of God and a table. We better get serious about this. I could name the name, by the way. I haven't thought of this in years, but a leading investment company in this world. If I mentioned the name, you would know it. Some of you may work for it. They gathered their executives together, literally thousands of them. They said, the best thing you can do for this company is several nights a week, walk with your wife and leave your cell phone at home. Just walk with your wife. Don't be answering emails. Don't be answering text messages. Don't be carrying on other conversations. Walk with your spouse. You're fortunate here because it rains so much you have to have an umbrella, so you'd have to be close. This couple did not believe in saying no. Our son-in-law married our daughter 13 years ago. Our oldest daughter, Tiffany. When he was in college, he was visiting our home. He grew up in our ministry, and we were watching something on the television, and we were almost to the end of it. It was a good program, and somebody said a word, D-A-M-N or H-E-L-L, I forget what it was. And without even anybody saying anything, our son stood up and shut the TV off. And he saw that. And he said, I never even knew he did that. I mean, that was a rule. But I didn't. And he told me that. I heard him preaching it several years ago. He said, I watched that. I heard Pastor talk about that. He was not going to allow swearing in his home. But I watched that. And I watched we were deep into this thing, and nobody said, Dad, what are you doing? That was the rule. That was the rule. There needs to be some rules. When I grew up, we only had one telephone. Well, first we had a telephone out front of the house, and it was a booth for the entire street. We didn't have a telephone. And then when we finally got a telephone, we had a party line. Remember those old party lines? But I remember when we got one telephone in the house. My dad just believed in one telephone. He said, we're not putting telephones in the rooms. You have a conversation, we're all going to hear it. And he said, kids, your telephone, we want you to use it. It's for about 3 minutes of conversation and then get off and keep moving. There needs to be some prohibition. I grew up, my dad and mother, they never let me watch I Love Lucy because they were always lying to one another. I watch it now. My dad and mother never let me watch really much of Bonanza and Gunsmoke and Rifleman and all those things. They're on now. I love them. I'm probably pretty bad. I came home the other, and my wife, we've always had, she just doesn't believe in watching TV when the sun is up. She is such an old funny duddy. Like she's not here. This is not being recorded tonight, is she? I mean, she just has these rules. She goes, the sun is up. What are we doing? Watch it. We're not going to watch TV. Let's go do something. Take a walk. Plant some flowers. Clean something. Wash a car. Do something. I kind of like that. The other night, she surprised me. I'd come home. I'd been up for long, and it was about 6 o'clock. The sun was still up. She goes, your favorite program. And it's not my favorite program. I've only watched 10 episodes or so. She goes, The Rifleman or whatever. It's on. I said, well, the sun is up. She goes, well, I'll give you permission to watch it. Oh, she's a beast. I mean, but nonetheless. I'm talking about there has to be some no's. Mothers and dads, everything in life for our children. No. You'll get those kids crazy. But there has to be some no's. That's why I have speed limits. That's why I have stop signs. I drove about 100 miles away. I was in a city recently. I was going to preach that night. And I was going down a road, and the road was 45 miles an hour, speed limit, but then there were stop signs occasionally. I watched this guy, this young kid, 16, 18 years of age. I stayed with him as close as I could. The guy didn't believe in stopping. He didn't believe in slowing. He came to a four-way stop, 45 miles an hour, just kept trucking on through. There's a boy who has a rebellion in his heart. Because he never thought the no was for him. Adam and Eve were told, don't touch that tree. I don't care. I'm going to do what I want to do. That's what we do with tithing. God says upon the first day of the week, let every one of you lay by him in stores, God has prospered them. That there be no gatherings when I come. And so we don't want to tithe, so we begin, well, I'll tell you what, that's Old Testament. Then why did God say this, talking about the tithe and the coming, this you should do? And we don't do less under grace than we would do under law. It's always amazing. You get off on money, it gets real quiet. I want to say, secondly, I know I'm out of time. This couple embraced independence. Independence destroys love. If my wife would become independent from me, if I became independent from my wife, we would destroy our marriage. She must stay dependent upon me. I must stay dependent. I was telling Pastor and his dear wife tonight, we were talking, and I said, we were talking about if one of us goes first. I said to my wife, honey, and it's no problem if she does, because many of you have, I know. But I said, honey, don't remarry. I was just testing her to see what she'd say. Don't remarry. She goes, oh, why would I want to do that again? Sounds like we're having marital problems, doesn't it? That's I'm here for a therapy session tonight. I'd bring her with me, but she said, no, I'm not going. Put my foot down. The sun's up. Satan found Eve alone. That's independence. Adam was off doing his thing. She was off doing her thing. Independence destroys love. I want to be accountable to my wife. She can take my cell phone anytime she wants and reach, and she can see who I talk to, when I talk to them. I don't want it. Well, I'll tell you what, no woman's going to look at my phone. It's none of her business. Your wife? I tell you why you have that attitude. You're hiding something. I tell you, dear lady, why you say, well, my husband, that's dictatorial. I tell you why you're saying that. You're hiding something. See this old gray-headed man, white hair, whatever color it used to be, I don't know what it is, but it's all gone. Been around the block, I've seen it a lifetime. You cannot have independence in a life, in a marriage, in a home. The kids doing their things, Mama's doing her things, Daddy doing his. Tonight at this altar, I say, we're going to merge our family back together. You're in for sorrow. We issued more divorces last year than we did marriages. 75% of all marriages that were in the divorce court, 75% had the word Facebook in the divorce papers. There's no safety when you get out of bounds. Safety is with some rules. Safety is what being accountable. There must be accountability. This couple embraced their own thinking, set up our own rules. We're out of time. What's the result of this? Chapter 3, verse 8. They hid themselves. When we do not embrace rules, regulations, authority, when we do our own thing, we destroy ourselves, and when we destroy ourselves, we start hiding. We have that huge auditorium, those balconies. The balconies on the side and that lower floor that just fans out, and it goes quite deep. And in the back, there's a pillar here, a big pillar, and one here and one here. I tell you what, I know when something's going wrong because people hide behind those pillars. They're building the 49ers stadium within 1 mile of our church right now. My wife's not happy about that. And they're building that thing, and friend, I'm telling you what, I'm watching it on a regular basis, I'll go by there and see this thing. It's a mammoth place, and it's amazing what they're doing. I'm going to go to some oddball game on a Monday night. I won't go on Sunday, but I'll go some other time. I'm telling you what, I'm not going to sit behind a pillar. I'm not getting as far away as I can. And when people come and they hide out, or they work, one pastor came and goes, what is wrong with my children's church ministry? I've got all these adults that want to work in junior church, but they never go into junior church. They go in the kitchen and drink coffee and talk. And then after church, they say, we've been working in junior church. They've been drinking coffee. They hid themselves. That's why our computers should never be hidden in the home in a back room. It ought to be facing. Everybody can see it. Not only when we rebel against authority and against rules, we hide ourselves, we become afraid. Verse 10, they were afraid. They have so much we could say about it. And by the way, then they started, number 3, the blame game. The woman thou gavest me. It's her fault. There's a real man. Blaming his wife. And then she blamed the devil. You know, it's amazing when we rebel against God and then we begin to hide and we begin to get afraid. We're afraid of everything. We blame. But then, number 4 came judgment. There has to be some boundaries. I'm glad those pilots today, they obeyed some rules when they flew. They obeyed the rules. I don't know why they landed the plane this way. I've been on one airline alone that says you've flown 1 million miles with us. It's a lot of miles. They're flying that plane and they weren't bringing it through the clouds today. They were dropping it, but they didn't go through. They were messing around. I don't know why. I mean, I fly. I know how you're supposed to get that thing. And they just coast and they cut it back. I mean, good night. We were making good time. They said we were going to be there early. We wound up being here late. They cut it back. I felt when they cut it back. I said, "You've cut it back." I said to myself, "We could be still going X amount of miles an hour. You cut that thing back." And we were just coasting along. And they dropped it, and we stayed. We got through those clouds and below those clouds. Just sort of stayed there cruising. Good night. What? I felt like going and knocking on the door. Would you move this thing? I mean, I know, I've never flown a plane, but I know how to fly. It's like a husband goes in the kitchen and telling his wife how to cook. I don't know one thing. I'm standing out there. I want my dinner. I'll tell you that right now. I'm not going to tell her how to cook. You know what was happening? Those 2 pilots were obeying the tower. Because they said, we're going to make up time. We're going to be there early, and we got here late. So somebody told them what speed to travel. I don't agree with the tower. If I were in the tower, I would have done it differently. But I'm glad we listened to the tower because there could have been a great collision. You have to obey the rules. This is the rule book. Get to know it. Get to know every prohibition. Everything God says don't do, let's not do it. Everything He says to do, let's do it. Father, I know I could speak a long while tonight on this subject. I guess I've spoken long enough. And I pray that You'd work, that help us to embrace, seek rules and regulations and to keep us safe. This book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, In it thou shalt meditate both day and night. Help us to obey the Bible. Adam and Eve are a prime example. They didn't believe that prohibition meant them. They bent the rules. And the consequences for thousands of years now have been so terrible for the next generation.